Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. UNICEF expresses concern over subjection of thousands of children in northeast Nigeria to grave rights violations. And in South Africa, convicted rapist and murderer appears in court for the first time since his re-arrest. John Teixeira arraigned in Boston court for allegedly leaking confidential U.S. defense and intelligence documents. My name is Tunde Ido. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has expressed concern over the subjection of thousands of children in northeast Nigeria to grave violations of their rights. In a statement today, it lamented that 9 years after 276 schoolgirls were abducted in the middle of the night from their dormitory in Chibok, 96 girls remained in captivity. It added that the most common violations were recruitment or use of children by armed groups with 700 verified cases, followed by abductions of children with 693 incidents and killing and maiming with 675 incidents. It cited a Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria report saying between 2009 and 2022, around 2,295 teachers were reportedly killed in attacks and over 19,000 teachers were displaced. Also, more than 1,500 schools were also said to have closed because of insecurity and 910 schools were destroyed. Earlier, Amnesty International said lack of accountability for crimes against children in Nigeria is emboldening impunity. In a statement, Acting Director of Amnesty International Nigeria, Issa Sanusi, described the kidnappings that have taken place since the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls as an utter failure of the federal government to protect children. And in Rivers State, the police command says its operatives have arrested a child trafficking syndicate, which included 3 women operating within and outside the state. The command stated that the feat followed a complaint lodged by a woman in Umbima community in the Ikwere local government area of the state that her child was missing. In a statement, the State Police Public Relations Officer Grace Iringe Koko said operatives of the Commission of Police Monitoring Unit swapped in on the prime suspect who incidentally had visited the complainant a few days earlier before the child went missing. The police stated that while some of the rescued children have been reunited with their parents, efforts are ongoing to rescue 2-year-old Jasper Friday, who was sold at Asaba Delta State. The command therefore requested well-meaning persons to furnish the police with information that could lead to the rescue of the child. SP Iringe Koko also advised all residents of the state to be wary of exposing their children to visitors they do not know intimately. And news outside Nigeria, Burkina Faso's military government has set a target of recapturing 40% of territory lost to militant groups, announcing a general mobilization to give them all necessary means to do so. A statement by Defense Minister Kasum Koulibaly said the measures will give a legal framework to all the actions to be implemented to deal with the situation that Burkina Faso is experiencing. It could include a state of emergency in part of the country, although the full details of the guidelines are not yet clear. Burkina Faso has been embroiled in a jihadist insurgency since 2015, and the violence has left more than 10,000 dead and displaced 1.8 million people. In South Africa, a convicted rapist and murderer who escaped from jail last year has appeared in court for the first time since his rearrest earlier this month. Thabo Bester, the so-called Facebook rapist who used the social media site to lure victims, alleged at today's hearing that his ID number is incorrectly listed on documents and that it is not safe for him to eat prison food in case somebody poisons him. Instead, he wants his lawyers to provide his meals, and he has refused to eat for the past 48 hours. His lawyers said Bester will not apply for bail, but argued he maintains the right to do so at a later date. Bester's case has now been postponed until next month. Still in South Africa, in the meantime, a court of appeal in Morocco has Still in Africa, beg your pardon. In the meantime, a court of appeal in Morocco has greatly increased the jail sentences given to 3 men for repeatedly raping an 11-year-old girl. In a case that sparked public outrage, a lower court 2 weeks ago convicted the men of indecent assault and sentenced them to between 18 months and 2 years in prison. The appeal court in Rabat has now revised the sentences to 20 years in jail for the main defendant and 10 years for the other 2. The court heard that the girl, who is now 12, gave birth to a baby last year, and a DNA test confirmed that one of the attackers was the father. Turning to the United States, Jack Teixeira has appeared in a Boston court for allegedly leaking confidential U.S. defense and intelligence documents. The FBI arrested the 21-year-old at his home in Massachusetts, and he was formally charged today. Teixeira is a member of the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. The defense and intelligence files were leaked on the gaming platform Discord, causing panic among top U.S. officials.
The FBI on Thursday arrested Jack Douglas Teixeira, a 21-year-old member of the U.S. Air National Guard, over the leaks online of classified documents that embarrassed Washington with allies around the world. Federal agents in an armored car and military gear swooped in on Teixeira, dressed in gym shorts, a t-shirt and trainers, at his home in Dayton, Massachusetts, a mostly wooded town of 8,000, about 80 kilometers south of Boston. Pentagon officials said they were still assessing the scale and scope of the leak, which appeared to show classified information about the war in Ukraine and U.S. allies. At a separate news conference, Defense Department spokesman Brigadier General Pat Ryder said the leak had been a deliberate criminal act.
It is important to understand that we do have stringent guidelines in place for safeguarding classified and sensitive information. This was a deliberate criminal act, a violation of those guidelines. And so, again, I think that's important to understand. Now, we will continue to do everything we can to ensure that people who have a need to know when it comes to this kind of information have access to that. We're always going to learn from every situation. But again, this is something that we'll continue to look at.
Recall that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin had said in a statement promising to get to the source of the leak and uncover the extent of it, leaving no stone unturned.
We take this very seriously, and we will continue to investigate and turn over every rock until we find the source of this and the extent of it.
Officials have repeatedly warned, however, that some of the documents had been doctored and may be used in disinformation campaigns. Teixeira was an airman first class at Otis Air National Guard Base in Massachusetts, according to his service record. He joined the Air National Guard in 2019 and worked as a cyber transport systems journeyman or an IT specialist. The documents leak, posted largely on social media sites, was believed to be the most serious security breach since more than 700,000 documents, videos, and diplomatic cables appeared on the WikiLeaks website in 2010. Attorney General Merrick Garland told reporters Teixeira was wanted in connection with an investigation into alleged unauthorized removal, retention, and transmission of classified national defense information.
Today, the Justice Department arrested Jack Douglas Teixeira in connection with an investigation into alleged unauthorized removal, retention, and transmission of classified national defense information. The
FBI on its part said its agents had conducted authorized law enforcement activity at a residence in North Dayton, Massachusetts. Teixeira was expected to appear in court on Friday, a spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston said. While the Justice Department did not say what charges Teixeira would face, although they will likely involve criminal charges of willfully retaining and transmitting national defense information. Although the leak only garnered widespread attention after an April 6 story in the New York Times, journalists have found evidence that the documents, or at least some of them, had been floating around on social media as far back as March or even January. The leaks revealed information about allies including Israel, South Korea, and Turkey, and while U.S. officials believe most of the materials are genuine, some, however, appear to have been altered to show inflated estimates for Ukrainian battlefield casualties in the war with Russia, as well as understated numbers. for Russian forces. Temi Tokmeaji Jalaluola, Western Spring Television News.
Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill banning most abortions after 6 weeks, paving the way for drastic changes in access to the procedure across the state. Opponents argue 6 weeks is before many women know they are pregnant. The law will not go into effect until a court rules on an ongoing legal challenge to the existing 15-week ban. They claimed the law will defend the dignity of human life and transform Florida into a pro-family state. The state's current 15-week limit on abortion is one of the most lenient in the Southeast, with many traveling from other states to Florida to have the procedure. The 6 weeks ban makes exceptions for abortions in cases of rape or incest, as long as the woman can provide documentation such as a police report or a restraining order.
Today we lead, today we stand for life. We stand with mothers and we stand with Florida families, and by your vote today, we change the culture of abortion to a culture of life.
You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of his revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiting class and their state structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grass to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Western Spring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
And you're welcome Welcome back. Moving to other stories. Botswana President Mogwetsi Misisi has denied allegations that he planned to replace his deputy Slumba Sogwane. This follows speculations that Mr. Misisi will fire his deputy after the 2024 general elections. Speaking after chairing a meeting of the ruling Botswana Democratic Party, President Misisi said Mr. Sogwane had been a hard-working vice president since his appointment to the position in 2018. He said he had never planned with anyone or held any meeting with his cabinet to replace his deputy. United States President Joe Biden's aircraft has landed at Newark Airport as he returns to his roots in County Mayo in Ireland. Mr. Biden has links to the county through his great-grandfather, Edward Belwitt. The president is due to speak at a homecoming celebration outside St. Mordred's Cathedral in Ballany late tonight. A crowd of up to 20,000 people are expected to line the streets of the town for the event. It is thought that the president will be presented with a brick from a fireplace that is the last surviving piece of his ancestral home in the town. Elsewhere, a powerful cyclone has hit Western Australia as a Category 5 storm, setting a wind speed record but sparing populated areas from major damage. Severe tropical cyclone Ilsa struck the state close to Port Hedland, the world's largest iron ore export hub, just before midnight. The storm has been downgraded to Category 3, but a red alert remains in place for some inland communities. The cyclone is the strongest to hit the region in some 14 years. Port Hedland's mayor, Peter Carter, described the sound of the wind hitting the town as unusual and like a freight train. In other news, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, says Africa is facing a severe financing squeeze, that on the back of a series of unprecedented shocks is disrupting economic growth and endangering its long-term development. Sub-Saharan Africa was only beginning to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic's economic fallout when Russia's invasion of Ukraine roiled capital and commodity markets, drove up inflation, and paved the way for higher interest rates around the world. Director of the IMF African Department, Abebi Selassie, said any one of those shocks will have been historic on their own. The fund published its regional economic outlook for sub-Saharan Africa today during the IMF and World Bank's spring meeting in Washington. In the report, it forecasts that regional growth will slow for the second year in a row to 3.6% this year from 3.9% in 2022 before rebounding to 4.2% next year. A tightening of global monetary policy to rein in inflation has led to higher interest rates, raising Africa's borrowing costs on both domestic and international markets.
OPEC oil price increase, as always in sub-Saharan Africa, it will be asymmetric. In general, it will be negative because, I think out of the 45 countries, only about 8 are net oil exporters. So those other things being equal, whether you have subsidy or not, etc., should benefit from higher oil prices. But for most other countries, it will be a source of, a negative shock. So it will amplify imports, foreign exchange demand, and at the margin also inflation.
Japanese officials have approved controversial plans to build the country's first gambling resort. The complex will open in the western city of Osaka in 2029. Casinos have long been illegal in Japan, but a law was passed in 2018 providing exceptions to games such as poker or baccarat to create jobs and boost tourism. Public opinion has been split, with some concerned about a rise in crime and gambling addiction. Besides the casino, a 5.3 million square foot complex will include a hotel, conference center, shopping mall, and museum. Police have arrested a self-described tech entrepreneur over the fatal stabbing in San Francisco of Cash App founder Bob Lee. The suspect is 38-year-old Nima Momeni from Emeryville, California. Police said Mr. Lee and Mr. Mumeni knew each other. Police found Mr. Lee unconscious with stab wounds on the 4th of April near San Francisco City Center. He died in hospital from his injuries. In a news conference, San Francisco Police Department Chief William Scott announced Mr. Mumeni's arrest, adding that he has been charged with murder and is now in custody at the San Francisco County Jail. A Spanish extreme athlete has emerged from a cave after spending 500 days with no human contact in what could be a world record. When Beatriz Flamini entered the cave in Grenada, Russia had not invaded Ukraine, and the world is still in the grip of the COVID pandemic. It was part of an experiment closely monitored by scientists, but none of the experts made contact with her. Footage on the Spanish TV station showed her climbing out of the cave, grinning before hugging her team. Speaking shortly afterwards, she described her experience as excellent and unbeatable. And to the exciting world of sport, Bayern Munich manager Thomas Tuchel has said the club will not tolerate the heavy incident in which Sadio Mane allegedly punched teammate Leroy Sané. Reports in Germany claim Mane hit Sané in the face after Tuesday's 3-0 Champions League defeat by Manchester City at Etihad Stadium. Senegal forward Mane has been suspended from Bayern's squad before tomorrow's Bundesliga match against Hoffenheim, but Tuchel said the league leaders had cleared the situation.
The fact that we are winning games and games, that we could not do it during the season. During the season, our good games, we play really good as well, but we were not consistent. And the reason why that
And in England, Pep Guardiola insists his Manchester City side have no room for error as they take on struggling Leicester tomorrow. The champions could move within 3 points of Premier League leaders Arsenal with victory at the Etihad Stadium, but any slip-up could prove costly. On the other side of the title race, divide, Mikel Arteta admitted his Arsenal side will need luck in order to come out on top against City. The Gunners go to London rivals West Ham on Sunday, looking to get back to winning ways after last weekend's 2-2 draw at Liverpool.
The fact that we are winning games and games, that we could not do it during the season. During the season, our good games, we play really good as well, but we were not consistent. And the reason why that everybody knows that if we lose games, we lose competition. And that's why our attention and details are higher. It's the same like tomorrow. If we lose the games, we will not be champion. If we win, we could be still there. Because we cannot forget, we are 6 points behind Arsenal. A team like he dropped few points during the season and playing 1 game a week with a lot of time for recovery, analyze and prepare the games. That will be so difficult to drop points. So that's why you have to be there as much as possible.
But do you say things like, for example, you know how you feel now, we need to stop that happening again?
Yeah, after the game, it's easy to say stop happening. We try to prevent that in many moments against them, and we actually did it because they're going to have periods of dominance, periods where they get you into that chaotic game that they're exceptional at, and we didn't manage to get out of that game well enough, and that's what we suffer.
Is luck, among other things, going to be a factor in the run-in to the title? You need luck. You need luck in the right moment. That luck, why that luck is coming from, I think is really important, and how you think about it and what is going to happen. But yeah, is another part in the sports. Sometimes about inches, and those inches.
And to tennis, Rafael Nadal has withdrawn from the Barcelona Open, saying he is still not ready to return to the men's ATP Tour. 36-year-old Nadal has been struggling with an ongoing hip injury that has also kept him out of this week's Monte Carlo Masters. The 22-time Grand Slam winner remains Nadal for the French Open in May, where he is defending champion. Nadal has not played since he was defeated by American Mackenzie McDonald at the Australian Open in January. The Barcelona Open, which Nadal has won 12 times, starts on Monday and is one of the last big clay court events before the French Open begins in Paris on the 28th of May. Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, has expressed concern over the subjection of thousands of children in northeast Nigeria to grave violations of their rights. And in South Africa, a convicted rapist and murderer who escaped from jail last year has appeared in court for the first time since his rearrest earlier this month. In the United States, Jack Teixeira has appeared in a Boston court for allegedly leaking confidential U.S. defense and intelligence documents. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Tunde Ido. Good evening.